Hi, my name is Kat, and today I'm going to be airing my grievances about The Girls by Emma Cline. So, I recently found out via an email newsletter that she has a new book out, and I've been told that reviews for her second book, The Guest, have been overwhelmingly positive, although I must admit that I haven't read any of these reviews, nor the actual book itself. I have, however, read her debut novel, The Girls, and this new release reminded me that I never actually published a review for it, so now I'm going to make it everyone's problem. So in this essay, I'm going to be covering the book, my thoughts on it, most of which aren't that positive if you've already guessed from the title, and I'm going to be spoiling the entire book. Watch out for that. And I'm also going to be covering sensitive subjects related to cults and murders, so watch this video at your own discretion. And without further ado, let's get on to the book. So to start us off, The Girls was originally published in 2016 by Random House, and it's Emma Cline's first published novel. Loosely inspired by the infamous Manson family murders, its plot follows 14-year-old Evie Boyd as she is caught up in a group of spellbinding girls and the man/cult leader that they all follow, named Russell. The book was the winner of the Shirley Jackson Award for Best Novel 2016 and was a Goodreads Choice Award nominee for Best Fiction 2016. So it sounds like a pretty good book, right? Many other readers and reviewers would probably agree with you, like The Washington Post and NPR to name a few. I, however, would not, as you've probably already guessed. I have a few different problems with this novel, the first of which is that the author managed to make something as fascinatingly macabre and intriguing as boring as my high school finance class. The real-life story behind Charles Manson and the so-called Tate murders is almost horrifically interesting. For full disclosure, I read Helter Skelter by Vincent Bugliosi, a true crime novel about the case written by the actual prosecutor for the Manson trial, right before I read The Girls, which is part of the reason why The Girls fell so flat to me. A Helter Skelter is a gripping, horrifying beast of a book. It sucks you in and refuses to let you go until you've learned every gritty, gory detail. Bugliosi's intimate knowledge of the case makes him the perfect storyteller as he leads you through every small clue and motive that builds the case against Charles Manson and his oh-so-devoted followers. There's so much to the story that has already been said, both by Bugliosi and other creators, in books and documentaries and music, all in the past 50 years, that a retelling like The Girl just has to find something new and exciting to shed light on, a whole new avenue to explore. This book just doesn't do that. Cline doesn't really have anything new to say. Our main character, Evie, is a perpetual outsider. In this way, she acts like an audience insert, allowing us a peek into the dark world that she stumbled upon. And there's really nothing wrong with this premise besides the fact that because of it, Evie doesn't really do anything. Whether it's because the author didn't want to offend any of the real-life people involved in the Manson family by basing a character off of them, or because she didn't want to implicate her own character in their crimes, therefore absolving her of guilt, this decision forces Evie to lurk outside of her own narrative. She isn't allowed to do anything new. She isn't allowed to get involved in the cult or change the actions of the story. It just happens because it happens, and Evie's here to watch because she has to be for the plot to be able to go forward. The book never delves into uncharted territory because of this. The story would have happened the exact same even if Evie had never existed at all, which is not a good thing for people to be able to say about your main character, and because of this, the book really lacks a solid purpose. It fails to explore anything at all. It has nothing to say. The same holds true for the plot, which I briefly mentioned earlier, but the plot in this book is largely a gross simplification of real-life events, with a few spatterings of original writing that serve as our look into Evie's future. Obviously, no retelling that is inspired by true events will line up perfectly with reality, but rather than taking an interesting concept and adding something new or turning it on its head, this book makes it boring and pedestrian. In the real world, Manson's motives are a complex and confusing amalgamation of race wars, prejudice, post-apocalyptic futures, dune buggies, Beatles lyrics, and miscellaneous biblical influences. They're a mess and they barely make sense, but that's what makes it interesting. The search for a motive in the mountains of evidence is one of the most important parts of the prosecution case explained in Helter Skelter. In contrast, our Manson stand-in, featured in The Girls, wants to kill people because Mitch, our resident Beach Boy stand-in, couldn't get him a record deal. Which is mind-numbingly boring, especially when the other option is a madman's belief that he is Jesus and killing any random influential person will start a war where him and his family will be the only survivors, all because they hunkered down in the desert with a bunch of dune buggies. That's the real motive, and in the book, reducing it to a simple thing about money and record deals and fame just takes out all of the nuance and intrigue related to the case. It's pure insanity, but the real life motive of Manson is something that is interesting to read about. The motives are the most glaring example I can provide, but this is true for most of the plot. The Girls simplifies pretty much every true event it draws inspiration from, and in that aspect, the plot just falls flat. The other notable parts of this book are comprised of Cline's original ideas, particularly inventions about Evie's family, friends, and future. Some of these portions take place in the future, following Evie as an aimless middle-aged woman currently house-sitting for a friend. When said friend's teenage son and his girlfriend show up, we get some really good interactions between Evie and the girlfriend, whose name is Sasha. I really enjoyed these sections, especially seeing how Evie saw herself in Sasha and tried to help her despite Sasha's own wishes. All of the original writing wasn't bad. The only time it fell flat was when it ventured back into the main plot, exploring this cult and what happened with it and Evie, and that was most of the book. And that's what really is the most disappointing thing that I could say about this book, is that there's just so much wasted potential. This could have been interesting. This could have been amazing. I could have really enjoyed this. I actually really enjoyed the idea behind it, which is the whole reason why I picked up the book in the first place. Showing a girl's perspective of these events, showing how someone vulnerable could get drawn into a cult, would be an interesting area to explore, especially combined with how women were treated during the time period, contrasted with how they were the actual ones doing the murdering in the story. There's a lot of really interesting concepts in the idea alone. I think it's something that is worth exploring, and this could have been a much deeper, twisted exploration of some really cool ideas, if only the author wasn't scared to commit to the actual cult material. Most of the story is built around it, but we never really explore it. It's just another thing that happens because the plot demands so. And that's what makes me really frustrated about this book. Why write a book about a cult if you aren't going to really go for it? Why do it at all? This book could have been so much better if Cline did commit to it, because there's interesting things to explore if you really actually wrote about it. Or alternatively, I think she could have written a really great novel if she just used her own original ideas. Her writing in the future sections was really good, and I'm sure that a story where she isn't bound to historical inspiration could be really good. There's a lot of good ideas here, and either of these options would have been better than the book she actually wrote, which was by and by just disappointing. And so, for these reasons, maybe I will read The Guest, since it's mostly Cline's original ideas, and from what I've seen in my lovely email newsletters, isn't based on historical events at all. So maybe this will be better than The Girls, but when it comes back to The Girls, the subject of this entire review, if you're looking for a story about cults and murder in the 60s, just read Helter Skelter. I know it's a nonfiction book and is about 200 to 300 pages longer than The Girls, but it has a lot of really interesting information in there and is definitely worth the read. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just skim the Wikipedia page for Charles Manson. Either option would be more interesting, because oftentimes, like in the case of this book, reality is much, much stranger than fiction. And that's all, folks. I know that this was a little bit of a shorter review, but I was scrambling to get it written this morning because today was one of the only days I actually had the opportunity to film. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Did you read The Girls? Did you like The Girls? Did you hate The Girls? If you disagree with what I said here, let me know in the comments. We can have a little argument. It'll be fun. Did you read The Guest? Should I read The Guest? Should I do a review on it? Let me know. Any thoughts at all? This review will also be published on my blog if you want to read the written portion, which is pretty much the same as what I said here. You can also go follow my blog. I talk more stuff about books, writing, whatever I'm into this week. Lately it's been a bunch of Patti Smith, so you'll probably see some of that there. And if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. I talk more lately. I've got a lot of videos that I need to edit, and then those will be out once I'm done with them. But thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?